The meeting of the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority. Informational meeting. We're actually having two meetings today. The first one is a requirement of the enabling legislation of DDAs that we have an informational meeting twice a year. Susan, I turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. It's a great opportunity to share with the public the projects of the DDA and the impacts that we're having in our downtown. The topic areas that I'm going to focus on today will fall in a few categories. I'm going to talk about people-friendly streets and other infrastructure projects. We'll talk about our parking system and then other mobility elements. We'll talk about our work toward our goal of housing at all levels of affordability, our goals of sustainability, downtown quality of life, and I'm also going to touch on the impacts that we are working on to benefit our taxing authorities. So starting with people-friendly streets, we're going to talk a little bit about the individual projects, but all of them, whether they're 5th in Detroit, the William Street Bikeway, First in Ashley, which is going to be starting this year, Huron, and then in the future, State Street, they have two primary goals to them. The first is we're undertaking infrastructure investments that help the city and the DDA meet our goals and our mission. And they're also designed with the second goal of working toward Vision Zero. We are redesigning the right-of-way with an emphasis on prioritizing human lives above all other considerations, even if that does mean things like traffic speeds will be moderated. We finished our 5th and Detroit Street project this year. It's a project that was done in collaboration with the city. Our goals with this included working to improve the pedestrian crossings. We made a significant number of improvements to the farmers market. We created two plazas, which I hope some of you will see in action 2 days from today at Kindle Fest, one in front of the farmers market and one at the community high school across the street. And they're gathering spaces that encourage us to come together as a community. There were elements that were also done in celebration of the neighborhood. The key thing that I think the community most notices is we work to restore the historic brick street, which is the signature of the Carytown neighborhood. We're underway with Huron Street. We've stopped for the winter. We'll pick it up again when spring comes around. Most of that project, like all the others, are infrastructure. There are elements that I think people will see almost immediately as an improvement. A key piece is the lighting. Not only will we be adding more lighting that puts these sidewalks in compliance with our standards, but they will now become city lights. And so often when the lights are out in the downtown, the streets that have the lights that are managed by the city come back on almost immediately. We have an excellent city crews. And I'm excited to see that on Huron, which has been sporadically in the dark for many stretches of time. We added elements like conduit. We're adding a number of trees. And that said, a key piece of the design are those trees. The planters are oversized with the goal of increasing their size. So often downtown, the streets have trees that look like lollipops. And it's because they struggle to survive in an urban setting. These planters are designed to encourage them to get to some fuller growth, something that I hope is equivalent to what we see today on Main Street. But a big piece of Huron Street, we need MDOT's help. And we've been working with them, and the city's been working with them to get their support for a number of other improvements that are really more about moderating traffic and improving conditions for pedestrians. The first piece, which is the left turn signal at 5th, has been approved by MDOT. And so for those people that have had those near misses in the crosswalk, when a car driver is trying to hurriedly make a left, this will be an improvement for pedestrians crossing from one end of 5th to the other side across the street. And we're still waiting to hear about the full signal at Chapin. Right now there's a hawk signal. We're looking also for things like no turn on red and so forth. Construction will continue, as I said, in early spring. We'll finish up the project. William Street, a great success. I thank all of you that participated in the ribbon cutting. This, again, was a project in partnership with the city where the water main consolidation took place and we resurfaced the street together. This is the first of many protected bikeways, and I think we rightly celebrated it because it's long overdue where we're establishing that bicyclists are required to be given the same courtesy, the same safety that other means of mobility have had. Frankly, a car has steel around it. Protecting bicyclists is a goal I think we all face, and so the first street of many that will have protected bikeways. Yep.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I'm on hold for just a moment.
Darren, what did you do? Hit space. Didn't work.
Thank you, Kelly. And maybe just our projector.
Uh-oh, now there's a countdown.
That's right.
That's not a good sign.
Pretty long, with a half hour.
It's like a Matrix movie. Well, I'm just going to keep talking. So the next image that you're going to see, we'll be talking about First and Ashley. The project will be going out to bid very soon. The construction will begin on those two streets in the spring. A key element of it is the goal, again, with pedestrian and bicyclist safety. We are working with a design that will have a restoration of two-way traffic on those streets, something that had been the lion's share of those streets' history had been two-way, and they were made one-way in anticipation of a bypass that fortunately was never constructed. Almost there. Other improvements that we undertook in addition to people-friendly streets. The DDA puts money every year into sidewalk repairs, particularly the brick portions of the sidewalk. We do this work in collaboration with the city, who undertake repairs to the concrete portion. Another element of that work this year was the removal of that blighted canopy that was in front of the Courthouse Square building. That has stood in the way of our using that sidewalk for decades. And having the canopy removed, I don't know if you felt it, I certainly felt it. The street now feels like a street that you want to walk down. It doesn't have that imposing barricaded feeling to it. So very excited to see that come down. Had it for a second. Okay. Don't you love technology? Having touched on our other improvements, I'll keep going. The parking system was certainly something we spent a lot of time on this year. As with every year, we undertake repairs and maintenance to the garages. This year, it was up over $1 million worth of maintenance work in the garages. We also did some equipment purchases. We are also undertaking more equipment purchases in the coming year, but this, just make a note, we did a significant amount this year. A key project that we took on over the last 2 years was a proposed expansion to the Ann and Ashley garage. The goal of that project was not to add substantively to the parking system downtown. Instead, it was to look to the west and see all these surface parking lots. And the goal of the project was to encourage the redevelopment of those surface lots with higher, better uses other than surface parking. More residents, more hotel guests, more jobs. The project went to council this summer. The first response we had was a proposal to build out the ground floor with a very large public meeting space, something that's in very short supply given the number of meetings we have with our community. It would also have included a new customer service office for our parking operator, and eventually it would have been the DDA offices as well. That was defeated by council in September. We then went back with the other remaining part of the project, which was an expansion that also included improvements to the garage. Unfortunately, that also was defeated in October. But that said, we've been working on other mobilities other than cars. This year saw the inclusion of more covered bike parking spaces at the 4th and Washington garage. I think it was a few dozen spaces. We're now up over 1,000 bike parking spaces downtown, and that is a significant parking system. It's just a different mobility parking system. So that is a complement to the work we're doing with the bikeways. The DDA continued its support for Get Downtown and Go Pass. We had a celebration around our 19th year. You're going to hear a whole lot more this year about our 20th year of support for Get Downtown and Go Pass. Survey work was done, and as a metric, what we understood was at least 1,200 people a day are making a choice to come downtown, commuting downtown in a means other than a single occupancy vehicle. So kudos to us, Get Downtown, the City of Ann Arbor, and ATA for our ongoing commitment to this program. We also worked this year with goals of sustainability. We're now 1 year in on that 4th and Catherine solar carport. That carport captures enough electricity through the sun that it powers that lot. And it was meant as a way for us to understand how we could move forward in a more substantial way on the rooftops of the garages. We had hoped it would be Ann Ashley, that would be our substantial solar electric project. with the decision about not moving forward with that project, we'll have to look at other sections of our parking system where solar electric might be put to use. And then finally, as we sort of touched on, the last element is our taxing authorities. The work we do is an encouragement of the district and in some part also our taxing authorities. By doing the work we do, a substantial increase in their tax base allows the county, the library, the community college, the schools, the city to provide services to our citizens. And we've seen an increase in the taxable values and therefore in the tax captures by the agencies. With the city and the other taxing authorities, the DDA has a TIF cap, and it's important to note now, just 3 years in, almost $900,000 in excess of what our cap is now going to the taxing authorities, on top of what they're already capturing. So the cap is working to benefit all of us as we're seeing a substantial amount of growth downtown. And then finally, just touching on it, the parking system is strong and healthy. 20% of those revenues go to the city, and that's about $4.4 million. And we're working as we can in other ways to support all the taxing authorities. So that said, in short summary, I want to thank you for this time to talk about our projects. I'm really very proud of you as a board, of this agency, and the work that you do, and the impact that you have. And we look forward to our next informational meeting in June. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. With that, I will call to order the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority regular monthly meeting. And we start, of course, with a roll call. Susan?
Micah Bartolome. Here. I'm going to get it right. Alexandra Deek.
Here.
Bob Gunsel.
Here.
Tyler Kinley.
Here.
Marie Clough.
Here.
Howard Lazarus.
Here.
Jessica Leetow.
Yes.
Molly McFarland.
Here.
Darren McKinnon.
Present.
Rishi Narayan.
Here.
Keith Orr.
Present.
Phil Weiss.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right.
We have 100% attendance.
Yeah, look at that. And of course, first thing we have to do is approve the agenda in front of you. Do I have a motion?
Rarely
Yes.
Second.
Support over Ellisville. All in favor of approving the agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, it is approved. We now have audience participation. First one signed up is Frances Tedora Hargreaves from State Street.
Hi, everybody. I'm here from the State Street District, and we're here to express our support for the project budget being put forward today by the Capital Improvements Committee. This includes a project on the 300 block-ish of State Street and the 700 block of Northview. And over the last 4 to 5 years, the State Street District, along with some groups from the university, have increased our usage of that area greatly with events and other activities. So we're looking forward to this project occurring and bringing us some more opportunities to improve that corridor, its business area, its feel, also its security, and also the flexibility in parking. We're looking forward to having ideas where parking can be removed on a temporary basis for events or other things, but then can be brought back. And some of the businesses there are really interested in talking and discussing with the DDA staff of how we can do that so that they have parking when they need it, and when they don't, or it's in the way, they can use it for other opportunities to increase their businesses and also make it more user-friendly for people to come to the area and hang out and spend more time. So we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Francis was the only one signed up. Do we have anyone else interested in talking to us? All right. In that case, we'll move forward to reports from city boards and commissions. Ray, you're up first.
Last night, 30 downtown and near downtown residents gathered at 120 North Division, that's my house, for our annual holiday dinner party and discussion of the current state and future possibilities of Ann Arbor. Wine, cocktails, hors d'oeuvres, and social conversation were followed by a shared and informed sit-down discussion. This, of course, is not a meeting. I want to make clear, this is a party. Our meeting did not take place because we long ago set it up so that we could discuss the nature of what we wanted to, free of any kind of limitations. And we certainly had no limitations last night, particularly relating to the development of affordability in the downtown. The Citizens Advisory Council is strongly in favor of more affordable housing in the downtown area. Comments were diverse, ranging from a general disappointment in what some consider to be the city's inability to produce an adopted planning department program for future development, to Alan Haber, and Alan Haber is always at our meetings. So is Frank Wilhelm, so is our others that are in that group that want to do something on the library block, which we happen not to support at this time. Frank Wilhelm was also there, and Will Hathaway, however, was not able to make it. A full-course dinner was then served in front of the fires, and all of us talked about what we would like to see in the downtown in 2019, including the parking addition on Ashley Street, which we supported, even though others didn't, and what we might do to make that happen. Coffee, dessert, more drinks, and further friendly discussion continued for as long as guests wanted and were able to stay and stand. Everyone present had a chance to speak, while the majority of those seemed to support increased density and development in the downtown. They were also apprehensive about the possible dangers to historical identity and livability. And surprising to me, I mean, there was also a lot of discussion of climate change and what it is that we could do, on a local level and in the downtown. Everyone supported the concept of residential units at all income levels. But there was clearly a fear of the current increasing opportunities for the rich and inadequate public support for housing at lower income levels. Most of those present, when asked, regretted the loss of affordable units in the core library lot proposal, as well as the $5 million that might have been available for affordable units in other less central city locations. Improved public transit, alternative transit options, and pedestrian improvements were supported by everyone there. What I perceived as a growing observation was the group seeming to be much more willing than it had before to compromise. Everybody was in a compromising mood. That may have something to do with Norm Tyler and the group. I mean, that is, at this particular point, having discussion that we reported out in February. And even Alan Haber is aware of the nature of that cooperation. He came up to me and suggested what it is that he might be willing to support. So we're working on something that may be a positive in the future. But because we have a lot of stuff that we're doing too, we are made up of people who are appointed by the mayor and city council. But we have a lot of people who come to our meetings because we're discussing things that are of concern to those people. So that we as a group have decided is that we're going to have Steve Kaplan, who is much aware about the nature of property, development, and supportive of housing, because he owns housing, that sort of thing, even though he lives one street off of the downtown. So we're going to have Steve coming and joining us at the meetings here and sometimes reporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. DDA members' communications. Jessica?
You got me before I could raise my hand. So every month I hold 2 public conversations that I call downtown halls that are an opportunity for the public to come ask questions about the DDA, our organization, the projects that we do, things like that. It's typically 1 coffee hour and 1 walking tour, although as we head into the colder months, that's a little bit weather dependent. So the 2 downtown halls this month are tonight at the downtown library, 7 to 8:30. I'll be on the 2nd floor in the cafe area. And then, so that'll be the sitting one. And then this coming Saturday at 10 a.m. Is the walking tour. So we'll meet at Lake Transit Center on the west-hand side, which is the side facing the 4th and William parking garage. And we go as the Spirit moves us, but the Spirit will probably move us up the bikeway. And I also want to thank Maura for the newsletter that you send out. The Michigan Daily apparently keeps an eye on the DDA calendar, and they sent a journalist to come talk to me about the Downtown Hall and the DDA. Yeah, so that was exciting to get to talk to one of their reporters. And I'd also, this isn't strictly DDA board member communications, but I'd like to recognize audience member Adam Oxner, who was just called out in Forbes magazine's 30 under 30 list. So awesome to have an Ann Arbor, and specifically an Ann Arbor downtown member, recognized at that scale. So congratulations.
All right, thank you. you, Jessica. Anyone else? All right, with that we move on to Executive Director Communications. Susan.
So I would like to just make a note of some meeting dates, just to put them on your calendar. The first is, we usually meet as a board the first Wednesday of the month. In January, that would be New Year's Day. And I don't think that many people are going to want to give up their football game watching to do that. So we're moving it 1 week. It'll be January 8th. So please make a note, the Partnerships Committee will meet that day at 9 o'clock. We're going to focus on affordable housing. We've invited Jennifer Hall to join us to talk about the proposals that she brought to council and what that means in terms of the downtown and the DDA specifically. So partnerships at 9, executive committee will meet at 11 that day, and then the board will meet at 12. So again, that's all on January 8th. The second thing to put on your agenda, your calendar, as you turn the page to 2020, we're going to hold a DDA retreat on February 4th. At this point, we're looking at a full day of retreat, but stay tuned as we develop the details of that meeting. We'll be back in touch. There are two elements that we're working on. The first is around governance and what our roles and responsibilities are, staff and board. The other is to review the DDA purpose and how we're doing with our 2003 renewal plan, and how we affirm and work in support of the city commitments to Vision Zero, Climate Action Plan, affordable housing, and of course our own commitment to downtown commercial vibrancy. So again, February 4th. At this point, we're looking to hold it here in our DDA boardroom. And then also to put on your calendar, this week there are 5 sessions regarding affordable housing and the old Y lot and the 350, the old Y lot is 350 South 5th, but also the 415 West Washington site. I hope you all got flyers, and if not, I'm going to just talk a little bit about it. We're going to have 4-hour sessions on each of these 5 days. People can drop in anytime. We're going to have stations where we can explain about affordable housing, the constraints on those sites, the opportunities on that site, and then to elicit from people their thoughts around the optimal reuse of those sites. Everyone, both of them, have enormous conversations behind them. There isn't always agreement. And so the idea is to have that conversation, find where there is agreement, whether it's the scale of the development, whether it's the number of affordable units or the level of affordability, what other elements are in those projects. Find our way to some shared agreement on the goals of the sites so that we can then bring back to council, we hope for approval, some kind of entitlement for those sites that could go out with an RFP. Previously, we had the RFP just to see what developers thought, and then we reacted to it as a community. We're taking a different approach and asking ourselves as a community first, what is it we want? As mentioned, there are 5 of them. The first is on Thursday here in the DDA office, starting at 5. We'll go from 5 to 9. The second is on Friday at noon, from noon to 4 at the library on the 3rd floor. The third one is Saturday at the YMCA, so that's down on West Washington Street in the Michigan room from 9 o'clock till 1 o'clock. Sunday, we're going to be at the Cirque on 1st Street, and that'll go from noon to 4. And then the last one, again, we'll be back at the library on Monday the 9th. We'll be there from 10 until 1 o'clock. And I urge you to come to all of them or any of them. Your input is really valued. Thank you very much.
Question, like the other open houses we've done, it's not a 4-hour presentation.
No.
It's a 4-hour period, come anytime
Absolutely.
during that 4 hours.
Absolutely. And all of them will be structured the same, so if you are able to come to one but not another, you'll have the same content and the same opportunities. And we really urge as many people as possible to come. The diversity of voices is really helpful. Thank you for helping us get the word out. And one last note, if you're not signed up for that newsletter, it is absolutely one of the best things that is coming out of this office. Kudos to Maura. I particularly liked, I was telling her, this month's version was really funny. It was my favorite thing. Yeah, so if you haven't signed up, please let us sign you up for the newsletter. Thank you.
All right. First part of the packet, of course, is all of the minutes from all of our meetings over the last month, and we need to approve them. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Support? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They are approved. Moves us along to subcommittee reports. The first one is the Capital Improvements Committee. Who am I tossing it off to Jessica, okay?
So Molly and I are co-chair of the Capital Improvements Committee, and we have a resolution to bring forward, but I'd like to start by summarizing the conversation that we had. This is more for our audience, because I think 10 or 11 out of the 12 board members and most of staff were there. So thank you for being there and part of such a robust discussion. There was a lot to dig into and a lot of ideas brought forward. So the context of the resolution is bringing projects forward such that they can be included in the city's capital improvements plan. So Amber, our resident capital improvements award winner, also had Deb Gosselin from the city, a city planner, come and talk to us a little bit about the city's capital improvement process to help us understand how we roll up to a larger whole. So what she was highlighting is that the DDA can be most impactful with its capital improvement projects when they're aimed in support of the city's goals, including carbon neutrality by 2030, Vision Zero, equitable accessibility, and affordable housing. They gave an overview of the CIP process. Something that I learned is that it's a rolling 6-year process. I knew that we worked in longer than 1-year increments. I didn't know that it was that far out. And it's a little bit of a relief to know that kind of the ups and downs of what's urgent kind of gets smoothed over that amount of time. The DDA and the Housing Commission are both required to submit their capital improvement projects as part of the citywide CIP to help with overall and infrastructure coordination. And another thing that I personally learned at the last committee meeting is that it's most helpful for the city for our projects to be included by September or October of the year before. We, I think, have been pushing it later and later, and this year the resolution that we're bringing forward in December is causing a little bit of bumpiness on the staff end. So it was helpful to understand how what we do as a board kind of ripples out to staff and to how the work proceeds the following year. Deb from the city highlighted that 3 key infrastructure elements, including water mains, sanitary mains, and storm sewers, offer great opportunity for DDA support of city capital improvement, specifically focusing on water and stormwater. So with that in mind, I'd like to move the following resolution to approve a project budget for People-Friendly Streets Phase 2. Can I ask for a second?
Support.
Thank you. So the CIC meeting included an overview of the city capital improvement process. Sorry? Oh, did we vote?
He can't support it.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that. Thank
Can I
you.
get a different
We
support?
need a support over here, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
I looked at Susan and she was looking down. I was like, I need someone.
I looked at you because I knew you were the guy.
Where's Robert when you need him?
My first Robert Rules mess up, all right.
That's all right, what we're here for, with the Roberts Rules safety net. So very helpfully, Amber included all of the information, I think plus a little bit more, in the packet that we were able to review in the Capital Improvements Committee last month, excuse me, including, you'll see plans and policy priorities that inform the CIC, changing mobility trends, where there is sensitivity around the different mode choices between driving, transit, biking, and walking, a little bit more about our climate neutrality goal and the master plan effort, as well as 4 maps starting on, does anybody have the pit? Oh, I have it here. Starting on page 24, 4 overlay maps of different kinds of opportunities, including extending the protected bike lane network, high crash rates, upsized water main potential for upsizing water mains, overlap of potential city bikeways, planned and planned city capital projects. So with all of this in mind, what we'd like to do is propose a budget for the State Street element of the project. In 2017, we set a project budget for $900,000. We'd like to increase that to $3 million to allow for a project comparable to other DDA projects. For folks who weren't a part of the board at that time, including myself, the project at that time was functionally a street widening project. Now we're looking at being able to include more comprehensive improvements like the People-Friendly Streets projects have allowed us to do, like 5th and Detroit, like William. We'd also like to increase the total project budget to $10 million for the next round of People-Friendly Streets, which includes the $3 million as stated for State Street and $7 million for mobility and infrastructure improvements on 4 other streets. The plan for this would be State Street to go in 2021, and for us to engage in a public engagement process, identifying what the next 4 streets would be and approximately what that timeline would be. So, discussion.
Are we splitting this into 2 that we talked about, or
We're going to keep it as one.
keeping it as one?
Yes, for the purpose of this discussion, yes.
I think what came out of our executive committee meeting, and Darren, feel free to just cut me off at any time, was that we wanted to leave the resolution as is, not do a, what's it called? An amendment to the resolution, but at least have the discussion so it's reflected in the minutes that we'd like some specifics to be discussed with reflect to the $10 million overall budget, to either name streets or to reference a certain number of lineal feet that we can do for infrastructure upgrades with this money at those locations.
Some sort of metrics around how we had arrived at $7 million on 4 streets. And I was hoping that maybe Amber had some time to prepare that.
I was not able to calculate lineal feet between executive and...
How about square
Take
feet?
the award back.
but I can provide some context. And unfortunately, Liz wasn't able to be here today, and she did the initial estimates, and so she could provide even more detail than I. But I'll share with you how we came up with the $7 million recommendation. So what we did was we applied the William Street costs to kind of an average of the 4 streets that we've been discussing, which includes Washington, North University, Division, and then Ann or Catherine. And so we said, okay, if we do William Street level improvements on 4 of those streets, what does that cost us? And that's about $4 million. And then we also recognize that we want to be able to do water main upsizing and likely some streetscape improvements, or you may choose, instead of a delineator protected bike lane, to do curb protected bike lane. So the additional $3 million gives you some flexibility to prioritize those other improvements. And the process really would inform those very specific improvements, just like what we've done with First and Ashley, where we used that as an opportunity to look at feasibility, engage with the community, and work with our partners to shape the range of options, and then the Capital Improvements Committee has a discussion about priorities within budget and makes those final decisions. But that's how we reached that $7 million estimate.
So on those 4 streets, could you just kind of give us the limits, like Washington from what to what, North University from what to what? Kind of had an understanding for, generally speaking, how many city blocks-ish?
Sure. So for the most part, I believe Liz's estimates reflected the maps, the extent of what's highlighted in your packet. So
Which page?
it starts on slide 24, which I think the one that you have open there.
Oh, that's
45.
45.
Yeah, so
24 in the upper right.
Oh, 24.
I believe it was based on those extents.
Slide 24.
It's like 3 up from the back.
Page 45.
Is there particular prioritization of either of these 4 streets?
It's
or-
45 at the bottom and 24 at the top.
Like, is there a priority placed on any of these particular streets, or how are these streets, like, are these just ones that are left after the other planned projects?
Well, what we did was we took a look at the water main upsizing potential. The streets that have been identified so far through the city's non-motorized master plan effort as streets that have high crash rates. And then we also looked at the city's capital projects and thinking through the overlap of those things, so where we can be most effective. And then also wanting to make sure we fill, if we're focusing on bikeway, we're filling out the network with some east-west and north-south streets. So that's how we arrived at the place to begin. And then most recently, talking with Jennifer Hall at the Housing Commission, we now have a better sense of their focus. And so that would be another layer that we would add in as how we prioritize. Does that answer your question?
I
I think just to re-summarize, the tone of our conversation at executive committee was, we understand that there could be 4 streets. We just didn't want to, some of us at least, were comfortable leaving it so open. Am I saying it right, Darren? I think we just wanted a little bit of specifics.
Yeah,
That's
the
where
idea
the
of
lineal feet thing came.
right.
in.
We didn't want to name these 4 streets because we're going to hire a consultant, and we didn't want to. The term that was used, put a finger on the scale for which streets get selected. We understand there's a public engagement process that may choose different streets that work better that the collective group right now is not thinking of. But at the same time, somebody at some point said 4 streets, and this is how they got there. And then somebody somewhere said $7 million, which you kind of talked about. So we wanted to kind of get some dialogue on the record for why $7 million and why 4 streets. It's extremely open-ended, and we didn't want to go so far as to make an amendment, but at least some discussion that we're having right now to be part of the dialogue, or I'm sorry, part of the minutes, so that when we look back a long time from now and some of the board may have changed, there's at least some understanding on what the idea was, and if we have to defend our ideas to others that don't agree with us, then we can kind of have that too. So when I'm looking at this map, I'm just doing this in real time here. So Washington, I'm looking at page 28 of the slide, which is 49 of our packet. It looks like it's from State on the east end to DDA boundary on the west end. And then North University is from State on the east end to Washtenaw, which is kind of also the east border. It calls it Gettys, but it's actually Washtenaw, I believe. Well, that's North University. That is Gettys there. Sorry. And then Division is kind of north to south, even though the DDA boundary. And then I didn't get to. You said and or Catherine, so it's kind of an either or, depending on maybe some of what the affordable housing opportunities are.
Yes, if the focus is on a bikeway network, I suspect we wouldn't end up prioritizing both of those streets. But I think feasibility and the partnership with the Housing Commission could help drive one or the other. And then this level of detail that we're talking about today would be reflected in the request for qualifications, so that the firms responding have a pretty clear sense of what we're looking for, and then it would also be reflected in the scope when you approve a design contract.
Can I ask just a quick question? On slide 24, there's blue is bikeways constructed planned. Obviously, Williams is constructed, and First is planned. Is that? Then on slide 28, bikeways constructed plan. It looks like it's main. I'm just trying to reconcile the two bikeways constructed plan overlays. And then there's some random other blue highlights. Is that actually supposed to be water sewer? I just was trying to figure
Yeah,
it
and
out.
looking at this map, to me it looks like the bikeways construction plan is actually left off the map.
Okay, so that's not actually
I
on.
think
So
that's
the
just an
legend on
error.
28 is wrong.
Okay. And the first one is planned
That's
in
the one.
our, like,
And
region
budgeted, and it's
yeah,
going
so
out
that's,
to bid
okay,
right now.
got it. Okay.
Amber, to be clear, that slide 28, page 49, the blue is planned water main projects, right? Because it's showing Main Street, which was a big water main project.
The way I read
Yes.
it, the
Yes.
water main blue is a thin blue, and the bikeway blue is a thick blue.
It's just the wrong blue.
Yeah.
Those are
Wrong
water.
blue.
Those are water.
Right.
Yeah, those are water.
Those are water and
Yeah.
sewer.
So one other thing we talked about is that, and I don't know if Susan mentioned this to you as well, but in the last 45 minutes, we had talked about, we had made some choices, tough choices, value engineering the First and Ashley projects, and we had to cut back some scope, primarily because we didn't have TIF dollars available, but now we discovered some new TIF dollars in the couch cushions. And so we also talked about the affordable housing opportunities at the Klein's lot, and an obvious opportunity on Ashley Street, particularly perhaps water mains or vaults or street lighting, things that could be done in conjunction with the project we're getting ready to start, that could also be used by the Housing Commission when they do their applications. And so I guess the real question is, and maybe we can't answer today, is the kind of take another look at the things we cut, and is there an opportunity to do some of those, to look at them again with this newfound funding?
Sure, I think I can address each of those. So with the Housing Commission projects on Ashley, my understanding is they have the water main capacity they need to serve those projects. So water main upsizing is not a priority for the Housing Commission projects. In terms of vault and streetscape on Ashley, if you remember, we were able to increase the project budget by $600,000 and add that in. So that's covered with the project that we're getting out to bid. What was not included in that project, the key piece, was water main upsizing on Ashley Street between Huron and Washington. And the way that we do, so that's not in the packet that's going out to bid. That was not prioritized. But the way that we bid the projects is we do it at a per unit. We bid it per unit. So since we're doing other water main work, we will have a competitively bid price for water main. So if you as a board decide that you want to upsize that water main, we have a price. It would just be a matter of designing it. Right now we're looking at Ashley Street being the second project that's constructed, so we do have some time.
So is that the only, where we shook out on, and first and Ashley, the only piece that was ultimately value engineered was that? We put back everything else we had taken out previously?
The only other part that we took out was the tree line plaza at Kingsley and First, and that was in big part due to feasibility. The grades there made it really challenging to take up too much space at that corner there. And the other piece was the water main I just mentioned.
Sorry, I was one of the 1% of board members that was
The 1%er.
So the slide 25 is water mains upsizing potential, and slide 27 is essentially the water sewer projects streets. For my own edification, what's the difference between those? Like, they don't overlap at all. So water sewer projects are just completely different than water main upsizing, and there's no overlap between, like, very little overlap between the two. That's really
Yeah,
sad.
so one thing that Deb talked to us about was how strained the water fund is at the city. And as a result, they're focusing on capital maintenance. And what we have been focusing on is upsizing the water main. So that means taking it from like a 6-inch main to a 12-inch main to allow for development.
Yeah.
So what you see on 27, that is what the city has planned for their water and sewer funds, which is why you don't see overlap with the upsizing, because they haven't had the dollars to do that.
Got it. Got it. If there were overlap between the two, then that would be an obvious, like, choice, right? Because they're essentially in the same scope.
Yeah. Typically, what we do as part of the process is we're looking for any overlap, because we would prefer not to do surface treatments if the utilities below need upsizing or improvement. So we're trying to find as much overlap as possible.
So basically, all the low-hanging fruit is gone, and this is what's left, essentially.
We've made significant progress on water mains.
Cool.
And just as another point about the resolution as a whole along those lines, is one of the reasons we have to go forward with State Street at this point is that it is an overlap with a street resurfacing project, which they cannot schedule. So if we don't do it now, then it's going to change the project significantly.
Got it.
Am I getting that right?
I wouldn't say have to, but it would be very
Right.
ill-advised
Right.
to not.
They have no intention of moving it.
We have a great opportunity that would be foolish.
It would affect other projects, not just that.
If I could add just 2 points. One of the things that came up at the CIC meeting is the difficulty that arises when money comes in different colors, and having to align those can be a challenge when we have money that comes from the feds, the state, from bonds, from operating dollars, and DDA. And that's why the early submission of the DDA's capital improvement plans is critical. The reason, just for background, why we are a little bit constrained on water main work is we have a tremendous amount of investment that's going to go into the water treatment plant, both due to the need to treat for different compounds at different levels, and just the age and the capacity of the plant. And it really doesn't matter how big the water main is if the stuff you're putting into the water main isn't safe to drink. So that's where the priorities are. So we are doing a lot more capital maintenance to extend the life of the transmission system, as opposed, so that we can do the work on the water plant.
Good
Thanks,
color.
Andrew.
Good color.
All right.
Canadians.
Did Amber, everyone get what they need from Amber here since she's sitting down? Any further discussion? All right, with that, we can take a vote. All in favor of the resolution to approve a project budget for people-friendly streets phase 2, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. Believe back to you, project updates.
Thank you, yes. So project updates, hang on, I had mine out in the, all right, so William Street Bikeway is of course complete, and Maura thanked everybody for the folks who were able to attend the Bikeway opening celebration. The photos from that were really fun. If y'all will remember, shortly after it opened, we got the big snow dump, and that was conveniently just before the snow maintenance equipment had been delivered, but there was really quick coordination with the city and the Parks Department, so they were able to get the Bikeway cleared relatively quickly, and I don't know about you guys, but I saw some cyclist friends posting photos with thanks because of that. The striping at this point, temporary striping should be complete, I think, and the permanent striping will be done in the spring. On Huron, the pavers and trees for the north side of Huron between Division and 5th will be placed in the spring. The trees for the south side east of Main should be planted, I think. And light poles installed during non-commuting hours after Thanksgiving with temporary lane closures. Staff is still waiting for a response from DTE regarding turning on the electricity for the light poles east of Main. In the meantime, we've requested that the contractor install temporary lighting. Any questions about the projects or the past and future projects? All right, our next capital improvements meeting, committee meeting is scheduled for when? January 18th?
December 18th.
December 18th this month, sorry. December 18th at 11 a.m. I'm already in 2020 in my head. December 18th at 11 a.m.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Partnerships Economic Development Committee. Tyler.
Over here. Yeah, so I'll do a quick overview of the most recent Partnerships Committee meeting. This year we have decided to sort of try to hone in on certain themes and topics. So the most recent topic theme was mobility. We had 2 presentations to kick off the meeting. The first was Raymond Hess. He's the city's transportation manager, and he gave a really robust sort of macro level presentation that was not only sort of what's the transportation plan and what is Vision Zero, but a lot of also just data on the current trends and the current status of how are things going within transportation and just moving people throughout our city. There are some really interesting trends. Since 2010, there was a 26% increase in car-free households. There's been an 8% increase in car-light households, and that was just sort of an interesting talking point to see what does that mean. And another one that really elicited a lot of conversation was just a map of the city showing how many people are coming in from what directions, with the arrows representing the majority of the people, and you really see how many people are coming into the city. So it was a really robust discussion.
Did he provide, is that like a map that you can share?
Yeah, we can provide that. I mean, there's a lot of good visuals to go along with it, so I can provide it to anybody that wants.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, and the Vision Zero plan has 5 key areas: safety, mobility, accessibility for all, healthy people / sustainability, and regional connectivity. So they're all, I think, really noble, worthy goals. But what really sort of created the conversation was just the data about what's going on. I can provide that to whoever's interested. The next presentation was Matt Carpenter from the AAA TA, and this was a much more micro-level conversation, talking specifically about the Y lot and the potential for the AAA TA to work within the development of that lot. Basically, what they'd love to do is take a sliver on the, I guess it'd be north side, that would almost mirror their current lineup of buses to sort of double their capacity to line up buses on the other side. They'd be totally on board to work with whoever or whatever gets developed there. They don't want to own it. They just want to add to their current infrastructure. It was a really good sort of delve into the specifics of how they would do it, what they would try to accomplish, and how much of a challenge that would currently alleviate, because right now buses are just streaming up and down on the side of the street rather than sort of tucked away. So that was a really good sort of update and vision from them that then spurred some more conversation about, well, what is the goal? What would it accomplish? What else could we be doing? Beyond that, there were just partner updates. The library, Westgate's open again. They're still transitioning away from the Dewey Decimal, which is loved by some, not by all. The city just renewed their contract for Recycle Ann Arbor and is also going to, I guess, be looking into a redevelopment of the MRF, which happened at the most recent city council meeting. One exciting thing is the AAATA and a regional transit authorities partnership. There will be piloting starting sometime in January, so quite quick, a direct bus from downtown Ann Arbor to downtown Detroit and back. They don't know a lot of the specifics. Basically, funding has been gotten, and now it's put into the AAATA's lap to figure out all of the nitty-gritty. How often does it run? Where does it run to and from? How much does it cost? What's the schedule? But it's happening, so it's pretty exciting to be able to just hop on a bus and go to downtown Detroit. Washtenaw Community College, the iron workers have renewed their contract for 5 years. That's a great thing. Their current enrollment data is going up slightly, and they went over a little bit of just a really good sort of series of 3 fact sheets talking about who goes to the college, how long do they go, and it's a really interesting sort of delve into how diverse their population, who they're serving. And at the end, the DDA presented, Amber Moore gave great updates on current projects, the CIC report, and yeah, so it's a good partnerships meeting. Their next one is December 11th. So that's a week. So 9 a.m. Do you feel like coming? Come on in.
All right, thank you, Tyler. Next up, operations. Phil.
Thank you. The November meeting was canceled due to Thanksgiving holiday, so our next meeting will be a week early due to the Christmas holiday. So Thursday, December 19th at 11 is the next Operations Committee meeting. Just a little preview of that meeting. We will be discussing the upcoming parking equipment upgrade project. Jada will have some information for us to review, bids from various vendors, so forth and so on. So there'll be all kinds of fun at that meeting. Show up at 11 a.m. on December 19th if you so desire. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Finance Committee. Bob.
Thanks, Keith. The November meeting was canceled due to lack of agenda items. If you look at your written agenda, it says that our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, December 18th. Since the publication of the agenda and the meeting, it's been determined that that meeting will also be canceled for lack of agenda items. So the next meeting of the Finance Committee will be in January. I don't have the date.
We'll get it on Jeff.
Okay,
Yeah.
and we'll send out written communication about that cancellation also.
All right, thank you. And the only other committee is the Executive Committee. As always, we met 1 hour before this meeting, largely going over the board meeting agenda. And the next one will also be 1 hour before the board meeting, Wednesday, January 8th at 11 a.m. New business. Seeing none. Any other audience participation? Seeing none. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Support? Support. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting's adjourned. 12:55, under an hour.
Bam.
Did it.
I have to talk to you.
I know, I'm so sorry.